Today, President Trump is signing a new round of executive orders. The move comes after the president told reporters on Sunday that he will announce 25% tariffs targeting imports of steel and aluminum. Tariffs are quickly becoming the president's key negotiating strategy, and it is still unclear if we should see additional tariffs targeting U.S. allies. But first, breaking news out of the White House. We are hearing that the president wants to pardon former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who served 8 years in prison on corruption charges. Joining me now from the White House is the Hill's White House correspondent, Alex Gangitano. Alex, it's great to see you out there on the lawn. What do we know about Trump's possible pardon of Blagojevich?
Yeah, good to see you. It's an interesting move here. You know, him and Blagojevich have had a relationship that dates back to 2010. After he was governor of Illinois, he actually went on the president's former show, The Apprentice. So they've had this longstanding relationship. He, of course, was a Democratic governor of Illinois, and his crimes date back to when former President Obama became president. He tried to sell that Senate seat in order to replace Obama when he headed here to the White House back in 2008. So a lot of interesting dynamics going on there. And we've also heard that Trump is considering making him the ambassador to Serbia because of his dad was born there and he has family history with the country. So a lot of dynamics here to watch if that pardon comes through.
Absolutely. We'll be watching out for it. I want to switch gears to Trump's tariffs threats. They're back front and center after announcing today 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. He also had this to say yesterday aboard Air Force One.
Very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. But I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed, and it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way.
It's important to note that the tariffs on steel and aluminum include Mexico and Canada. Alex, is this move specifically targeted at China? And what could additional tariffs could we see announced later this week?
Yeah, so China still has those 10% tariffs standing on them after Trump made deals with the leader of Mexico and Canada to delay the 25% tariff that he wanted to impose on those countries. But you mentioned the steel and aluminum tariff announcement today that he said, well, on Air Force One yesterday, that applies to everybody. He also signaled that there'd be retaliatory tariffs and reciprocal tariffs. So that basically means that if a country is imposing tariffs on us, he's saying that we will impose tariffs right back. And so that move could be also on everybody. He said that also includes Canada and Mexico, despite those deals he made to delay that 25% tariff. And it's largely targeted on China and other countries that he thinks have treated us unfairly. So if you mentioned, he's been using tariffs as a negotiating tactic. We're seeing more of that. And he thinks that tariffs are not only a way to show our strength internationally, but a way to help our economy back here at home.
Yeah, we'll be watching to see. We know that a lot of economic experts have warned that tariffs could raise prices on consumers. So we'll be looking out at that. In another move over the weekend, the Trump administration ordered the Consumer Protection Agency to stop nearly all of its work. The push comes after Russell Vought was confirmed as the director of the Office of Management and Budget. Alex, break this all down for us. What impact will these moves from the administration have?
Yeah, Democrats, advocates, watchdogs are warning that this could have a huge impact. The Bureau under the Biden administration came after banks for some predatory action towards American consumers. And so they're saying without that kind of an agency looking out for Americans, banks could feel more compelled to do things that hurts their customers without more regulation in place. And so this has been, though, a target of Republicans for years to look at the Bureau Protection Agency and to figure out what kind of overhaul they could have in support of some of these big banks. And so, well, the president, has been warning about moves like this, of course, warning about just overall overhauls to the federal government. This is in line with a lot of what his administration is doing, which is to look at ways to cut things, look at ways that we don't need some of these agencies they think are repetitive or unnecessary. And I think this is just the latest example of that.
Let's head to Capitol Hill, where the Senate will vote on advancing Tulsi Gabbard's nomination tonight for the Director of National Intelligence. Alex, do we expect any holdouts, or is she all set to be confirmed later this week?
Yeah, it's interesting. After last week, we saw her able to get out of the Senate Intelligence Committee with some swing voters supporting her. That included Senator Todd Young of Indiana, changing his mind after actually a lot of conversations with Vice President Vance in particular, who helped him reach to the point that he felt comfortable voting Gabbard out of committee. I think after he showed his support, we'll see her be able to pass the full Senate vote. But I do think there could be some senators not supporting her. I think Senator Mitch McConnell is somebody to watch on that front, Senator Lisa Murkowski. But I do think at this point she will not, be able to get, or she'll be able to get at least the votes needed in order to get through. But definitely a change of events from a couple weeks ago when we were looking at her as more of a controversial nominee before she came out of committee.
Certainly, and sticking with this question of the Senate and nominations, our colleague at the Hill, Alexander Bolton, is reporting that Republican senators are very concerned about the idea of going against Elon Musk and potential primary challengers backed by Musk if they don't fall in line, particularly with these primary votes. Is this why we're seeing a unified party behind all of Trump's cabinet picks on the Republican side? I mean, I think of a number of senators like Susan Collins, for example, who is up for re-election next year and seems to have fallen behind people like Tulsi Gabbard.
That's right. You mentioned Collins. Another one is Senator Bill Cassidy, who fell in line to support HHS nominee Kennedy. And, he's somebody who, as a doctor himself, had a lot of concerns about RFK Jr.'s background and his controversial stances on things like vaccines. Yet he decided to vote him out of committee. And so he's somebody who actually had voted for Trump's impeachment, so was already kind of a target from, 4 years ago of, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And so there's a lot of threats that they feel like they'll be primaried if they aren't supportive of the president's agenda. And I do think, to Bolton's piece, there's a lot of also questions over choosing your battles here and having Republican senators, hold off from speaking up about one issue when they might feel like they'll need to speak out against the president on other issues. So a lot of dynamics going on in here within the party, especially looking towards the midterms.
Definitely. And quickly, before I let you go, Alex, Trump told reporters on Sunday that he has revoked security clearances of people he doesn't respect. On that list is former President Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Who else is on that list, and how unprecedented of a move is this by President Trump?
Yeah, it's really interesting. He's been really focused on the President Biden component of that list, saying, he shouldn't even have access to these security clearances. What he did to our country was a disgrace. He really had a lot to say about his predecessor. And of course, Antony Blinken was Secretary of State under Biden. He's also revoked security clearances, the likes of New York Attorney General James. These are other people that he's seen as a target towards his agenda, a target when he was in between his presidencies on some of his legal issues. And so this is part of the influence he can have is in order to take, that he can take away these security clearances. So I think this is part of him just exercising his power, as he mentions, for people that he doesn't respect.
The Hill's Alex Gangitano coming to us from the White House. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Julia.
As part of the ongoing crackdown on the government waste, the Trump administration is halting the production of pennies, a coin which Trump says costs more to make than they're worth. Over the weekend, Trump directed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to stop minting the 1-cent coin, saying in a Truth Social post, "Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time." The move comes nearly a month after the coin was targeted by wasteful by billionaire and Doge leader Elon Musk, who made a post on X criticizing the cost of production. According to the U.S. Mint's 2024 annual report, the cost of making a 1-cent penny was more than 3.5 cents, and its production costs have been higher than its face value for 19 consecutive years. President Trump wants all details from the Secret Service on its investigation into the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on him and the separate attempt at his Florida golf course just months later. The Secret Service faced intense scrutiny for several failures during the Pennsylvania attack, including a failure to secure the roof on a building where the gunman fired his weapon. News Nation senior correspondent Brian Entin has a look at exactly what documentation President Trump is demanding.
So President Trump says he is not getting enough information about the assassination attempts and the assassins, and he says that he is directing the Secret Service to give him every bit of information. This is according to a new report by the New York Post. The president questioning, quote, why did the one guy have 6 cell phones and why did the other guy have 4 apps? He feels the Secret Service could be holding back information. He said no more excuses. That was the quote to the New York Post. The Secret Service did release a statement to us saying, as it relates to the requests by the president, any information held by the Secret Service will be provided to the president without exception. President Trump, of course, was shot back in July in Butler, Pennsylvania. He was at a rally there. He was shot by 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was killed by the Secret Service. And according to a congressional task force investigating the shooting, Crooks did have encrypted messaging apps, which is what President Trump is referencing in his latest statement. In September, at Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida, there was another incident. Investigators say a man named Ryan Routh shot at him. A Secret Service agent was actually patrolling the perimeter of the golf club and spotted Routh, he says, with a rifle pointed through the fence at the golf club in the direction of President Trump. 6 cell phones were found in Routh's car, which is what President Trump is referencing with his quote to the New York Post. More information about Routh in particular is expected to come out because he has pled not guilty and he will be going to trial in Florida in September. Back to you.
News Nation's Brian Entin, thank you so much for your reporting. And that's it for today's Daily Debrief. I'm Julia Manchester. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel and come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.